The Great Hall of Orvax's station had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in their seats, their eyes fixed on the holographic display at the center of the room. The blue light flickered once, twice, and then the image of a human woman appeared. Ambassador Yuna Kim stood alone. Behind her, there was nothing but darkness. No flags, no symbols, no other humans. Just her face, calm and cold like winter ice. Speaker Talos leaned forward in his chair. He was a Valorian, tall and proud, with silver skin that reflected the chamber lights. He had led the Galactic Council for 300 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched empires crumble. Nothing surprised him anymore. "Ambassador Kim," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "The Council recognizes Earth. You may speak." Yuna Kim did not smile. She did not bow. She simply looked at the camera. And for a moment, it felt like she was looking at every single person in that room. "Earth remembers," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "Earth withdraws." The hologram disappeared. For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was so heavy that some delegates could hear their own hearts beating. Then the chaos began. Voices erupted from every corner of the hall. The insect-like Crethians clicked their mandibles in confusion. The gaseous Nelvari swirled in their containment spheres, their colors shifting to angry red. The reptilian Krath delegates hissed with laughter. Warlord Thren of the Krath hegemony stood up from his seat. He was massive, covered in dark green scales, with teeth like broken glass. His people had ruled their corner of the galaxy through fear and violence for 2,000 years. "Let them go," he growled. "The humans are weak. They are children playing at being adults. They will come crawling back when they realize they cannot survive without us." Many delegates nodded in agreement. The humans had only been part of galactic society for 150 years. They were newcomers. They were young. What could they possibly do? But not everyone was laughing. In the far corner of the hall, Intelligence Director Orin sat very still. He was a Salathi, small and gray, with large black eyes that missed nothing. His people were not warriors, they were watchers. They gathered information, they studied patterns, and right now, the pattern he was seeing made his blood run cold. He pulled up his private display and began searching through files. Human history, human wars, human psychology. The more he read, the more afraid he became. Speaker Talos raised his hand, and slowly, the room fell silent again. "This is clearly a negotiating tactic," he announced. "The humans are upset about the Ember Drift decision. They will calm down. In a few weeks, they will return to the table, and we will continue as before." The Ember Drift. Orin remembered that debate well. Humanity had asked permission to colonize a small group of planets at the edge of explored space. The worlds were empty. Nobody wanted them, but the Krath hegemony had blocked the petition anyway, just to show that they could, just to remind the humans of their place. And then there was the other matter. The one nobody talked about anymore. New Daegu. 3 years ago, a human colony of 50,000 people had been destroyed by Krath raiders. Men, women, and children, all killed in a single night. The humans had begged the council for help. They had asked for justice. They had pleaded for intervention. The council had voted to do nothing. It was an internal matter, they said. The Krath had the right to protect their borders, they said. The humans should have known better than to build so close to Krath space, they said. Orin had voted against intervention too. Now, looking at the empty space where Yuna Kim's face had been, he wondered if that had been a terrible mistake. "Speaker Talos," Orin said, rising from his seat. "I request permission to speak." Talos nodded impatiently. "Make it quick." "I believe we are making an error," Orin said. "The humans are not like us. They do not make threats they cannot keep. They do not bluff. When they say they are withdrawing, they mean it." Warlord Thren laughed again. "And what will they do? Hide in their little solar system forever? Let them. The galaxy will not miss them." "Oh. Let them," You do not understand, Oren continued. I have studied their history. When humans feel wronged, they do not forget. They wait. They plan. They build. And then, when they are ready, they strike with everything they have. The room was quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of quiet. Some delegates were starting to look uncomfortable. The humans have a saying, Oren said. Revenge is a dish best served cold. It means that they are willing to wait years, decades, even centuries, to make their enemies pay. And right now, I believe we have made ourselves their enemies. Speaker Talos shook his head. You are being dramatic, Director. The humans are a single species with a handful of colonies. We are 47 civilizations with thousands of worlds. Even if they wanted to fight us, they could not win. Perhaps, Oren admitted. But consider this. In the last hour, every human embassy in the galaxy has closed. Every human ship has begun returning to Sol System. Every human trade agreement has been cancelled. This is not a tantrum. This is a plan. A plan that was prepared long before today. The delegates looked at each other. Some were worried now. Others were still dismissive. But all of them were thinking. Trade Minister Sella of the Merchant Guilds checked her datapad. He is right, she said slowly. Human ships are leaving all major ports. Human workers are abandoning their contracts. It is happening everywhere, all at the same time. Coordination, Oren said. Perfect coordination. They knew this moment was coming. They prepared for it. And now we must ask ourselves, what else have they prepared for? Speaker Talos stood up, his silver face showing the first signs of anger. Enough. We will not panic over the actions of one young species. The humans will realize their mistakes soon enough. When their economy collapses, when their people grow hungry, they will come back. And when they do, we will welcome them, because that is what civilized beings do. He looked around the room, daring anyone to disagree. This session is closed, he declared. We will revisit the matter in 6 months. As the delegates filed out of the hall, Oren remained in his seat, staring at the empty space where the hologram had been. He thought about the look in Unakim's eyes. There had been no anger there, no fear, no desperation, only patience. And that, more than anything else, terrified him. Somewhere far away, beyond the borders of known space, the lights of Sol System burned steady and bright. And in the silence between the stars, humanity began to build. 5 years passed, and the galaxy tried to forget about the humans. Trade routes adjusted. New suppliers filled the gaps. Life continued as it always had, with the same politics, the same conflicts, the same endless debates in the council chambers. Most species stopped thinking about Earth and its people. They had other concerns, other problems, other enemies to worry about. But some could not forget. Some watched the borders of human space with growing unease, waiting for something to happen. And slowly, piece by piece, strange reports began to arrive. On the mining colony of Veth 4, a Salathi supervisor named Koreth noticed something odd one morning. The human workers were gone. All of them. 23 engineers and technicians who had lived on the station for years had simply vanished during the night. Their quarters were empty. Their belongings were gone. Even their tools and equipment had disappeared. Koreth checked the departure logs. No ships had left the station. No shuttles had docked. The humans had simply ceased to exist, like ghosts fading into the darkness. He reported the incident to his superiors. They told him not to worry about it. Humans were unpredictable, they said. Perhaps they had found better jobs somewhere else, but Koreth knew that was not true. He had worked with those engineers for years. They were good people, professional, reliable. They would not leave without saying goodbye. Something else was happening. Similar reports came from all across the galaxy. Human workers disappearing overnight. Human businesses closing without warning. Human families packing their bags and heading back to Sol System. It was not sudden, like the withdrawal of the ambassadors. It was slow and quiet. like water draining from a bathtub. By the time anyone noticed, half the humans in the galaxy were already gone. Trade Minister Sella of the Merchant Guilds studied the numbers carefully. Human goods had been popular throughout the galaxy. Their technology was creative and practical. Their manufacturing was efficient and reliable. When they left, she had expected economic chaos, but the chaos never came. Other species simply filled the gap. New factories opened, new products appeared. The galactic economy continued to grow, and within 2 years, most people had forgotten that humans had ever been part of it. This bothered Sella more than the initial withdrawal had. The humans had been deeply connected to galactic trade. They had contracts worth trillions of credits. They had partnerships with hundreds of companies. Leaving should have cost them everything. Instead, they had left smoothly, cleanly, and completely, as if they had been planning for it for decades. She shared her concerns with Intelligence Director Oren, who had been quietly monitoring the situation since the beginning. They prepared, Oren said simply. They knew this day would come, so they made themselves ready. They reduced their dependence on outside trade. They stockpiled resources. They developed alternatives for everything they used to buy from us. But why? Sella asked. Why go through all that trouble? What are they planning? Oren shook his head. I do not know, but I intend to find out. Deep within Sol System, things were changing. Admiral Ji Wuhan stood on the observation deck of Titan Station, watching the construction drones swarm around the skeleton of a new ship. It was massive, larger than anything humanity had ever built before. Its hull was made of metals that did not exist in nature, forged in the burning hearts of captured asteroids. Its weapons were based on technology that had been classified at the highest levels for 50 years. This was the first ship of Project Vanguard. There would be many more. Jiwoo had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years. She had seen humanity pushed around by the older species, treated like children who did not know their place. She had watched the Council ignore the massacre at New Daegu, dismissing 50,000 deaths as an inconvenience. She had never forgotten. None of them had. Behind her, the door opened, and Defense Coordinator Minho Cha walked in. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes, but there was steel in his voice when he spoke. How is the construction going? He asked. Ahead of schedule, Jiwoo replied. The first fleet will be ready within 3 years. The second and third will follow 6 months after that. Minho nodded slowly. Good. The assembly is getting impatient. Some of them want to strike now, while the Krath are still unprepared. And what do you think? Minho walked to the window and looked out at the growing fleet. Dozens of ships were taking shape in the darkness, their hulls gleaming with new armor and fresh paint. They were beautiful, in a terrible sort of way. I think patience is our greatest weapon, he said. The Council believes we are weak. They think we ran away because we were scared. Let them keep believing that. Let them grow comfortable and lazy. When we finally move, they will not see us coming until it is too late. Jiwoo smiled grimly. The longer we wait, the stronger we become. Exactly. Back at Orvax's station, the Galactic Council continued with its business. Speaker Talos gave speeches about unity and cooperation. Warlord Thren boasted about his military conquests. The other delegates argued about trade agreements and border disputes, the same arguments they had been having for centuries. But Intelligence Director Oren could not shake his feeling of dread. He had sent probes toward human space, trying to gather information. Most of them had been destroyed before they got close. The few that survived reported strange readings, energy signatures that did not match any known technology, gravitational distortions that suggested massive construction projects, radio silence so complete that it seemed unnatural. Something was happening in Sol System, something big, and Oren was running out of time to figure out what. He requested a meeting with Speaker Talos to share his concerns. Talos agreed to see him, but his attitude had not changed. You worry too much, Director, Talos said dismissively. The humans have been quiet for 5 years. If they were going to do something, they would have done it by now. They are clearly content to hide in their little corner of space. Let them stay there. With respect, Speaker, I believe we are making a dangerous assumption, Orin replied. The humans are not hiding, they are preparing. Every piece of evidence suggests that they are building something unprecedented. Talos waved his hand. Even if that is true, what can one species do against 47? We have more ships, more soldiers, more resources than they could ever match. They would have to be insane to challenge us. Orin thought about the files he had read. The human wars, the human weapons, the human capacity for violence when they felt threatened. Perhaps, he said quietly, or perhaps we simply do not understand what we are dealing with. Talos laughed and ended the meeting. That night, Orin sat alone in his office, staring at a map of the galaxy. The borders of human space were marked in red, a small patch of color in a vast ocean of stars. It looked so insignificant, so harmless. But somewhere beyond those borders, in the cold silence of space, the forges were burning. The factories were running. The ships were rising, and humanity was waiting. Agent Suji Kang was not her real name, but it was the name she had used for the past 8 years. She was Salathi by birth, one of the best operatives in Director Orin's intelligence network. Her job was to watch, to listen, and to report. She had spent the last 3 years inside human space, pretending to be a refugee from the Krath border wars. Now she was running for her life. Her small ship cut through the darkness of space, engines burning at maximum power. Behind her, the human patrol vessels were getting closer. They had found her listening post in the asteroid belt, hidden among 1,000 rocks that looked exactly the same. She did not know how they had discovered it. She did not have time to wonder. All that mattered was the data in her ship's computer. The data that would change everything. She managed to reach the border just ahead of her pursuers. The human ships stopped at the invisible line that marked the edge of their territory, watching her flee into neutral space. They did not follow. They did not need to. They had already won. But Suji had escaped with her information, and that was all that mattered. 3 days later, she stood before Intelligence Director Orin in a secure room beneath Orvax's station. Her hands were still shaking. Her eyes were wide with something that Orin had rarely seen in one of his agents. Fear. Tell me what you found, Orin said gently. Suji took a deep breath. They are building a fleet, she said, but not like any fleet we have ever seen. Not like anything I thought was possible. She activated her datapad, and holographic images filled the room. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. They floated in the darkness of the asteroid belt, their hulls gleaming with strange metals that Suji could not identify. Some were small and fast, designed for quick strikes. Others were massive, bristling with weapons that made the Krath warships look like toys. This is only what I could observe from my position, Suji continued. There are more construction sites deeper in the system. Many more. My estimates suggest they have been building for at least 10 years. Maybe longer. Orin studied the images carefully. His blood felt cold in his veins. How many ships in total? I cannot be certain. But based on the production rates I observed, I would estimate at least 15,000 combat-ready vessels by now. Possibly more. Orin closed his eyes. 15,000 ships. The entire Galactic Council combined had perhaps 20,000. The Krath hegemony, the most powerful military in the galaxy, had about 4,000. The humans had been building an army, and nobody had noticed. There is something else, Suji said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Their communications. I spent months trying to intercept their signals, to decode their messages. I found nothing, not because my equipment failed, because there was nothing to find. What do you mean? I mean, they have gone completely silent. No broadcasts. No entertainment signals. No civilian communications. Nothing. The entire human population is operating under total information blackout. Every message, every order, every conversation happens through channels we cannot detect or intercept. Orin understood what she was saying. This level of coordination required absolute discipline, absolute loyalty. Absolute commitment to a single purpose. The humans were not just preparing for war, they were transforming their entire civilization into a weapon. He thanked Suji for her report and sent her to the medical bay. Then he sat alone in the dark room, thinking about what he had learned. The council had to be told. They had to understand the danger they were facing. But would they listen? Talos had dismissed his warnings before. Warlord Thren would laugh at the idea of humans being a threat. The other delegates would argue and debate until it was too late. Still, he had to try. He called an emergency meeting of the Intelligence Committee, presenting Suji's findings in careful detail. Some delegates looked worried. Others looked skeptical. Warlord Thren looked bored. "So the humans have built some ships," he said dismissively. "That means nothing. My warriors have conquered 100 worlds. We have crushed species far more dangerous than these soft-skinned mammals. If they want war, we will give them war, and we will destroy them. With respect, Warlord, you may be underestimating the situation," Orin replied. "The humans have spent years preparing for this moment. They have studied our tactics, our weapons, our weaknesses. They know exactly what they are facing, and they believe they can win. Then they are fools." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. It was soft and tired, but it carried clearly through the chamber. "No, they are not fools. They are humans." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Unji Yu, a human woman who had defected to the Silathi Consortium 10 years ago. She had been a scientist, a researcher who disagreed with her government's policies. She had come to the council seeking asylum, and they had granted it. Now she sat in the shadows, her face pale and drawn. "You do not understand my people," she continued. "You think you do, but you do not. You see us as young, weak, emotional. You think our anger will fade with time, that we will forgive and forget like civilized beings should." She shook her head slowly. "Humans do not forgive. Humans do not forget. We pass our grudges down through generations, teaching our children to hate the enemies of their grandparents. We build monuments to our dead and swear oaths of vengeance over their graves. We wait for decades, for centuries if necessary, until the perfect moment to strike." The room was silent now. Even Warlord Thren had stopped smirking. "When humans go quiet," Unji said, "it does not mean they have given up. It does not mean they have accepted defeat. It means they have made a decision. It means they have stopped talking and started acting." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. "The silence you have been enjoying for the past 8 years? That is not peace. That is preparation. And when the humans finally move, you will wish you had listened to your intelligence director when you had the chance." Orin felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected the truth for years, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "What should we do?" he asked quietly. Unji laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Do? There is nothing you can do. You had your chance 8 years ago, when you could have stopped the Krath from destroying New Daegu. You had your chance to show the humans that the Council cared about justice, about protecting the innocent, about doing what was right." She stood up slowly, her eyes filled with sadness. "You chose to do nothing, and now you will face the consequences of that choice." She walked out of the room without another word. The delegates sat in stunned silence, looking at each other with growing fear. For the first time since the humans had withdrawn, they understood the true nature of their situation. They were not waiting for the humans to return. They were waiting for the humans to attack, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The attack came without warning. Captain Velkris of the Krath Border Patrol was finishing his night shift when the alarms began to scream. He rushed to the command center of his station, a small outpost on the edge of Krath territory, and stared at the sensor display with growing horror. Gravity distortions, thousands of them, appearing all across the sector at the same time. "What is happening?" he demanded. His sensor officer looked up at him with fear in her eyes. "Ships, Captain. Human ships. They are coming out of faster-than-light travel everywhere. I am counting. I cannot count them all. There are too many." Velkris felt his heart stop. For 8 years, the humans had been quiet. For 8 years, the Krath had laughed at the idea of human revenge. Now, looking at the wall of red dots spreading across his screen, Velkris understood how wrong they had been. He opened a channel to Krath Command. "This is Border Station 7. We are under attack. Repeat. We are under attack. Enemy forces are." The transmission cut off as the first missiles struck his station. Velkris died without ever seeing the ships that killed him. Across the Krath border, the same scene repeated itself 100 times. Human fleets appeared out of nowhere, their weapons already firing. Defense stations were destroyed before they could raise shields. Patrol ships were torn apart before they could launch fighters. Communication relays were targeted and eliminated, cutting off entire sectors from the rest of the hegemony. The Krath had believed themselves to be the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered 100 worlds through strength and brutality. They had never known defeat. Now they were learning what it felt like. At the center of the human formation, the dreadnought UENS Remembrance led the charge. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, a mountain of metal and weapons that made even the mightiest Krath battleships look small. On its bridge, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo Shin watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. "Status report," he said calmly. "All primary targets destroyed, Admiral," his tactical officer replied. "The Krath border defense network has been eliminated. Their communications are down. They cannot call for help. Casualties? Minimal. 3 fighters lost. 2 corvettes damaged. No capital ship losses." Hyunwoo nodded. 8 years of planning. 8 years of building. 8 years of waiting. And in 11 minutes, they had torn through the Krath defenses like paper. "Move to Phase 2, he ordered. "All fleets, advance to secondary targets. No survivors, no mercy. Make them remember New Daegu." The human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups, each one heading toward a different Krath military installation. They moved with perfect coordination, striking targets that had been identified years ago by human intelligence operatives. Shipyards, weapons factories, training facilities. Everything the Krath needed to make war was destroyed in a single night. Warlord Thren received the news on his flagship, the Pride of Krath. He had been sleeping when the attack began. Now he stood on his bridge in his nightclothes, staring at the reports flooding in from across his territory. "This is impossible," he growled. "The humans cannot do this. They are weak. They are cowards. Warlord," his communications officer interrupted. "Enemy fleet detected. Bearing directly for our position. Estimated arrival in 12 minutes. Thren felt something he had never felt before. Fear. "How many ships?" he demanded. 347, Warlord, including a dreadnought-class vessel. Thren had 52 ships under his command. 52 of the most powerful warships in the Krath fleet. Against 347 human vessels, they would last perhaps 5 minutes. He opened a channel to the Galactic Council. His pride was gone now. All that remained was desperation. "This is Warlord Thren of the Krath hegemony," he said. "We are under attack by human forces. We request immediate military assistance from all council members. Repeat. We are under attack. We need help. Please. We need help." His message reached Orvax's station within minutes. The council convened in emergency session, delegates scrambling to their seats in various states of shock and disbelief. "They actually did it," Speaker Talos whispered. "They actually attacked." Intelligence Director Oren pulled up a map of Krath space. It was covered in red markers showing human fleet positions. The Krath territory was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece, with a precision that spoke of years of careful planning. "What do we do?" Trade Minister Sella asked. "Do we help them?" Before anyone could answer, a new transmission appeared on the main display. It was a human woman, middle-aged, with gray hair and hard eyes. The identification tag marked her as Chancellor Salmon Lee, leader of the United Earth government. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "I am sure you are watching events unfold in Krath space with great interest. Allow me to save you some time and confusion. She paused, letting the silence stretch. 47 species watched our children die on New Daegu. 47 species did nothing. They called it an internal matter. They said the Krath had the right to protect their borders. They told us to accept our losses and move on. Her expression did not change, but her voice grew colder. We did not move on. We remembered. And now, we are collecting a debt that is 8 years overdue. She leaned forward, her eyes seeming to look directly at every delegate in the chamber. This is not your war. The Krath killed our people. The Krath will pay the price. But understand this. Any species that interferes, any species that sends ships or supplies or aid to the Krath, will share their fate. We have 15,000 warships ready for combat. We have been preparing for this moment since the day you turned your backs on us. Do not test our resolve. The transmission ended. The council sat in stunned silence. Speaker Talos looked around the room, seeing fear on every face. We cannot allow this, he said finally. If we let the humans destroy the Krath without consequence, no species will ever feel safe again. We must respond. We must show them that the Council will not tolerate aggression. With what forces? Orin asked quietly. The Valorians have perhaps 3,000 ships. The Krethians have 2,000. We could assemble a combined fleet of maybe 10,000 vessels. The humans have more, and they have been planning this war for 8 years. We have not. Talos opened his mouth to argue, but another delegate spoke first. It was Ambassador Korval of the Nelvari Collective. I will not sacrifice my people for the Krath, he said. They brought this upon themselves when they attacked New Daegu. Let them face the consequences alone. Other delegates nodded in agreement. The Krath had no friends in the council. They had bullied and threatened every species at one time or another. Now, when they needed help, nobody wanted to give it. Talos slammed his fist on the table. If we do nothing, we are admitting that the humans are stronger than us. We are admitting that we are afraid. We should be afraid, Orin replied. Because right now, the humans are proving that they are exactly as dangerous as I warned you they were. And if we give them a reason to turn their attention toward us, we will suffer the same fate as the Krath. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the council voted to do nothing. 3 weeks later, the Krath hegemony fell. Warlord Thren died fighting on his bridge. Surrounded by the burning wreckage of his fleet, his homeworld was blockaded, his colonies were captured, and his people were forced to surrender unconditionally. The greatest military power in the galaxy had been destroyed in less than a month, and humanity was just getting started. The Great Hall of Orvax's station felt different now. The same seats, the same lights, the same holographic displays. But the atmosphere had changed. Where once the delegates had carried themselves with pride and confidence, now they sat hunched in their chairs, their eyes darting nervously toward the entrance. They were waiting for the humans to return. It had been 6 months since the fall of the Krath hegemony. 6 months since the galaxy watched in horror as humanity dismantled one of the oldest civilizations in known space. The Krath homeworld was under human occupation. Their fleet was destroyed. Their leaders were dead or imprisoned. A species that had terrorized the stars for 2,000 years had been brought to its knees in less than 30 days. Now the human ambassador was coming back to Orvax's station. And nobody knew what to expect. Speaker Talos had aged 10 years in the past 6 months. His silver skin had grown dull. His eyes had lost their brightness. He had spent his entire career believing that the Council was the ultimate power in the galaxy. Now he understood how wrong he had been. Intelligence Director Orin sat in his usual corner, watching everything with his large black eyes. He had been right about the humans. He had warned the Council for years. But being right gave him no satisfaction. Not when so many had died. Not when the future was so uncertain. The doors to the Great Hall opened, and Ambassador Jisoo Baek walked in. She was a small woman, younger than most diplomats, with short black hair and a calm expression. She wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or decorated. No guards accompanied her. No assistants followed behind. She walked alone into a room full of beings who had once looked down on her species, and she showed no fear at all. Behind her, on the holographic display, a live feed showed the human fleet stationed at the edge of Council space. Thousands of ships, floating silently in the darkness, their weapons ready, a reminder of what humanity could do if it chose. Jisoo stopped at the center of the hall and looked around at the assembled delegates. She did not bow. She did not smile. She simply waited. "Ambassador Bake," Talos said finally. His voice cracked slightly. "Thank you, Speaker Talos," Jisoo replied. Her voice was polite, but cool. "Though I am not here to rejoin the council, I am here to deliver terms." A murmur ran through the hall. Terms. Not requests. Not negotiations. Terms. Talos forced himself to stay calm. "What terms do you speak of?" Jisoo activated her personal display, and a document appeared on the main screen. It was written in simple language, clear and direct. "First," she said, "humanity demands recognition as a full equal member of the galactic community. Our colonies, our territories, our citizens will be treated with the same respect given to any other species. No exceptions. No conditions." The delegates nodded slowly. This was expected. This was reasonable. "Second, any attack on human citizens or human territory will be considered an act of war against all of humanity. We will respond with full force, without warning, without negotiation. The Council will not interfere." More nods, though some delegates looked uncomfortable. "Third, the Council will establish new protocols to prevent future atrocities like New Daegu. Any species that massacres civilians of another species will face immediate and severe consequences. The Council will not hide behind excuses of internal affairs or territorial rights." Talos leaned forward. "You are asking us to change the fundamental rules of galactic governance." "I am telling you to change them," Jisoo corrected. "The old rules allowed 50,000 innocent people to be murdered while you did nothing. The old rules are no longer acceptable." Silence filled the hall. Ambassador Korval of the Nilvari spoke up. "And if we refuse these terms?" Jisoo looked at him with an expression that sent chills down his spine. "You watched the Krath refuse us. You watched what happened to them. Do you really want to find out what happens to those who refuse us twice?" Nobody answered. Talos stood up slowly. His pride was gone. His confidence was shattered. All that remained was a tired old diplomat who had finally learned the limits of his power. "The Council will accept your terms," he said quietly. "All of them." Jisoo nodded. "Good. Then we have nothing more to discuss." She turned to leave, but Talos called out to her. "Ambassador Beck, please wait." Jisoo stopped but did not turn around. "I must ask," Talos said. "What happens now? Will you stay angry with us forever? Will you always hold this power over our heads, threatening to destroy anyone who displeases you?" Jisoo was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before. "We are not monsters, Speaker Talos. We did not want this war. We did not want to build weapons and train soldiers and spend decades preparing for violence. We wanted peace. We wanted to be part of your community, to learn from your ancient civilizations, to grow alongside you as friends and partners." She turned around slowly, meeting his eyes. "But you taught us something valuable. You taught us that in this galaxy, the weak are not protected, the peaceful are not rewarded. The only thing that matters is strength and the willingness to use it." She paused, letting her words sink in. "So no, we will not hold this power over your heads forever. We will not threaten or bully or intimidate. We will simply exist, as we have always existed, doing our best to live in peace." Her expression hardened slightly. "But we will never forget. We will never lower our guard. And if any species, for any reason, decides that humanity is an easy target, that our silence means weakness, that our peace means surrender, they will learn the same lesson the Krath learned." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We do not threaten. We do not warn. We do not bluff. We simply act." She walked out of the Great Hall without another word, leaving 46 species to contemplate their future. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The Council established the Sol Protocols, a set of guidelines that ensured no species would ever be dismissed or ignored, as humanity had been. A new court was created to hear grievances and prevent atrocities. Communication channels were opened so that disputes could be resolved before they became wars. On Earth, monuments rose in memory of the New Daegu colonists. Their names were carved in stone. 50,000 souls who would never be forgotten. Every year, on the anniversary of the massacre, humans across the galaxy paused to remember, to honor the dead, to renew their commitment to never let it happen again. The Krath hegemony was rebuilt under human supervision. The war criminals were tried and punished. The civilians were fed and sheltered. The occupation was strict but fair. And within a generation, the Krath became peaceful members of the galactic community, their days of conquest behind them forever. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, among the pirates and smugglers and soldiers of fortune, a new saying spread from species to species, passed along in whispers and warnings: fear the species that builds in silence. Ambassador Jisoo Baek returned to Earth after her meeting with the Council. She retired from diplomatic service and spent her remaining years teaching history at a university in Seoul. When students asked her about the war, about the years of preparation, and the final confrontation with the Council, she always gave the same answer. "We did what we had to do," she would say. "We protected our people. We honored our dead. And we made sure the galaxy would never underestimate us again." She would smile then, a small and tired smile. That is all any species can do. Far away, beyond the borders of known space, the stars burned steady and bright, and humanity watched the galaxy, peaceful but vigilant, patient but prepared, ready for whatever came next.